Building a gaming PC right now absolutely sucks. In fact, it may be one of the worst times ever to build one because of the ever-increasing cost of RAM, GPUs, and storage that just has made systems feel like they cost about double or even triple. However, I do have some good news. There are a couple pro tips that I have found to go ahead and keep your costs down if you're trying to build a system here in 2026, so I paired up with FSP to share them all. See, after dealing with a number of GPU crises previously, I found that one thing that you can always focus on is what can you control, at least when it comes to price. And are there cheaper options that may work for now? And some of them may require you to get a little scrappy, but I can promise you they're worth it. Starting off with the component that's increased more than just about anything, and that is RAM. Specifically DDR5 prices, because we've seen that last year around October, you could get a 32GB kit for $150, but now it's about 4 times that, around $600, which is absolutely ridiculous. So how do you save money right now? Well, it could be a little controversial, but I'm gonna recommend going with DDR4. Yes, that is the older standard, and it's gonna limit what CPU and motherboard that you can use, but I'm gonna get to that in just a minute, and I have a way where you can actually get DDR4 for free if you play your cards right, that I've used from the start of my business to acquire an unlimited amount of RAM, at least when it comes to last generation hardware. And regardless if you wanna follow my technique or not, if you were to buy DDR4 compared to DDR5 right now, it's about 1/3 the price, so that's a huge cost savings regardless. But if you do want to, my technique is, I've realized that small businesses get rid of their computers every 3 to 5 years, and so many of them don't know what to do with them when they need to get rid of them. And you guys are in a very special situation right now when it comes to acquiring RAM, because if you didn't know, because of the Windows 10 switch to Windows 11, there were a number of systems that were 6th or 7th generation Intel CPUs that didn't meet the cut to go ahead and run Windows 11 out of the box, which means there's a bunch of systems from those generations that are still out there that aren't gonna be able to be moved up, which guess what? Businesses have to get rid of, and they have DDR4. Which is actually how I acquired this guy right here, which if we take a peek inside, we'll see under this cover is 2 sticks of DDR4. In this case, we got ourselves a free 8GB by simply calling up some small businesses and asking if they had any old hardware to get rid of. And that exact technique is how I actually got started in this industry in the first place. I would often reach out to small businesses or even people on like Facebook Marketplace or Nextdoor and say, hey, do you have any old computers that I can take off your hands? They'd often hand them over to me. I'd go ahead and fix them up, maybe use some of the hardware from a couple different systems, put them together, and then resell refurbished systems, and it worked really well. But these days, there's a lot of small businesses that have to get rid of these, so help them out there, or just go on Facebook Marketplace, these old systems that can't run Windows 11, well, people are getting rid of them for pennies on the dollar, so you can pick one of these up for like 25 bucks and get yourself 16 or maybe 32GB of RAM for almost no cost. And if you do get a little scrappy with picking up a system like this is also a great way to pick up storage, because a lot of these systems shipped with NVMe SSDs, which you could reuse, which with prices skyrocketing right now, well, it might just make sense to go this route. But if you don't want to, my recommendation right now is to limit the amount of RAM that you are picking up if you're gonna go DDR4. Just go 16GB RAM. You probably won't be able to carry this over to your next build later on or upgrades down the road. So don't spend anything obnoxious or anything you don't have to. 16GB of RAM will get you by with most games these days. If you want to go to 32, go to 32, and then pick up a 1TB NVMe SSD if you're not trying to get scrapped. And the biggest limitation of going DDR4 that we're gonna have to talk about is that your best CPU options are gonna be AM4, which although is technically last generation and doesn't really have a true upgrade path anymore, the right AM4 CPU right now can actually get you pretty good performance, especially when you calculate performance per dollar on something like a Ryzen 5 5500 or 5600X, or if you want a little bit more performance, a Ryzen 7 5800 XT, which today often outperform their AM5 counterparts when you calculate the cost of cheaper motherboards, often about 25 or 30% less, and when you consider the fact that RAM is 1/3 the price, well, it makes a big difference. And another huge cost saving measure that I would have never recommended previously is looking at a micro ATX motherboard, even though I know micro ATX boards have had a bad rap. In fact, I would have never recommended them before just because they used to always cut down on features, but these days they're not that bad, and you still get a pretty decent product at a pretty awesome price. Like this exact board's under $100 right now, and it's gonna get the job done for a budget build today. As we prep it on its box, we can install our AMD Ryzen 7 5800 XT into our socket, latch it down, along with 16 gigabytes of DDR4 I salvaged from another system, installed in slots 2 and 4 as recommended by the motherboard, before installing one of the cheapest 1TB SSDs I could find from a good, reputable brand. And that finishes the process of prepping our motherboard, where we can finally take a look at why I said micro ATX motherboards are finally getting good. Because not only are the VRMs a little better than they used to be, not perfect. This is a really cheap board at under $100, but they're solving a lot of the problems I had with them for a long time. Like the fact that now you have multiple fan headers instead of just one, which you would see on a lot of micro ATX boards when they would cut costs. You now have ARGB headers, actually multiple in this case. You also have multiple USB ports, tons of SATA ports, and 2 M.2 slots, along with some diagnostic features as well as some repairability features that I love to see, like a BIOS flash button, which is so important on AM4 where there's multiple generations, and post LEDs. These are the debug LEDs from MSI, which cycle through during the power and self-test when your CPU, DRAM, VGA, and boot device all get tested, lighting up in sequence and holding on the particular LED if one of your components fails the power on self-test. So let me tell you, will save you a massive headache if your system's ever not post. So because we have a micro ATX board, we're gonna need to pick out a micro ATX case, which let me tell you first, your PC case can make or break your PC building and ownership experience. You buy a cheap case today, you're gonna regret it later. But if you buy a good cheap case today, well, not only are you gonna save money, but you're actually gonna get something that's gonna last you for a long time. And I think I just found the perfect sweet spot in the FSP S340, which at just $50 is an incredible value for a micro ATX case. Because where else at that price are you seeing a dual tempered glass side panel without the beam down the middle, which you often don't see, with 3 included ARGB fans, 2 of which are reverse blade fans so you can look at the pretty side as these are set as intake, but you also get incredible support here for things like an additional 2 fans on the power supply basement, another 120mm fan right here, and then up top, you have support for a 360mm radiator, or you could also do 140mm fans if you're not gonna do a radiator, giving you incredible cooling support at a great price point, which a lot of other cases sacrifice, without cutting out things like BTF support so you can have those Breer Connect motherboards, or even small things like I appreciate the captive thumb screws that a lot of other brands love to cut out, all with adequate cable management support, which has got me genuinely excited about building in this budget micro ATX case, because on paper, this could be an awesome option for those trying to save a buck. So let's get started by installing our motherboard's I/O shield, because that isn't included on this particular board. This way we can take our prep board and get it slotted into place. So the motherboard installed, I was just starting the pre-wiring process when I noticed something that I had to showcase to you guys on why this is actually a really solid budget case. A lot of times at $50, you don't see a single front panel header. This is a combined header that a lot of other cases are now using, which actually combines all those little tiny wires that you used to have to plug in into one seamless connector that's been designed to make your life easy. And as a technician, I love that type of simplification being seen on a case that's perfect for your first time at a great budget. So with our motherboard and our case pre-wired, the most important component in your system that you never want to cheap out on is what we got to talk about next, and that's your power supply. And today, we're not cheaping out. We're going with FSP's Vita GM 851 unit. See, FSP, if you're not familiar with, is the power supply manufacturer, or one of the major power supply manufacturers that's actually the OEM for some of your favorite brands. Most of them use FSP power supplies just with their own logo. So these are some of the best out there, and I'm not putting anything junk inside of a system. And 850 watts may sound like overkill, but that gives us plenty of headroom for whatever GPU we pretty much would want to pair with this CPU. And the thing is, most power supplies, if you buy a good one like this one, is gonna outlive most of your other components. With a 10-year warranty, it's hard to beat. So spending an extra 25 to 50 bucks now is absolutely worth it. You go ahead and make sure that you're gonna have a good, clean power supply feeding all of your components, while at the same time, one that you don't have to worry about randomly failing like a bunch of others. So let's go ahead and pull this guy out. And as this 80 plus and cybernetics gold power supply is gonna be fully modular, we're gonna follow my pre-wiring guide recommendation, which is where you plug in everything around front first, including your 24-pin and 8-pin, as well as prep any VGA or PCIe connectors before sliding the cables through the back and plugging everything into the modular interface on our power supply before sliding our unit in. And the reason I love doing it this way is, well, the bulky cables are always over the smaller cables, which makes natural cable management pathing so much easier. And you get your entire PC wired up before adding the two bulkiest components inside your system, your cooler and your GPU. And speaking of cooler, that's something we have to talk about, because although AMD does include a stock cooler with a 5800 XT, which is actually a pretty bulky unit, honestly, I almost never recommend going with a stock cooler, even on a budget build, because you can pick up really solid coolers for about 50 bucks, like this one from FSP. This is their MP7, which is not only going to give you way better cooling performance, but it's also going to give you mounting hardware that you could use for multiple upgrades down the road. So if you buy a good cooler today, well, especially an air cooler, it may just outlast the CPU that you actually have under it. So definitely a recommendation and something we're going to use today, because just like a power supply, cooling is something I never like cutting cost on, because it'll always bite you in the end. So to get this dual tower cooler from FSP installed, it's going to require us to pull off the stock mounting hardware and replace it with FSP's, which actually comes with a brilliant mounting trick that I haven't seen on a lot of other coolers. See, traditionally when you have a dual tower cooler, you actually have to pull off each fan to be able to get the cooler out, because the mounting hardware screws are typically located on the bottom. But for this one, they thought of a good idea to add these two holes here, where they included this extended screwdriver in the box, where if you just stick it through the hole, lines up perfectly, so you can screw this down without taking your fans off, which I think is brilliant. So with that said, after adding some thermal paste, we can go ahead and mount our cooler, and then grab our tiny screwdriver and get it screwed down into place, just like this, which might be one of the easier mounting solutions I've seen in quite a while. And I gotta admit, this cooler looks fantastic in this case, and you can actually see why I did run that CPU power cable ahead of time for that pre-wiring process. It does get a little bit of a pain to kind of squeeze your hand back there after you get a big cooler in like that. And it only gets harder when you add in a GPU, which is something we absolutely have to talk about, because the GPU market, just like the RAM market, absolutely sucks right now, because all of a sudden we're seeing GPU prices double in price, especially on the top end, and everything on the lower end is pretty much out of stock at this point. And when it is, well, you're paying extra 100, 200, 300, or maybe even double MSRP to go ahead and pick one up right now. So because we're on another GPU crisis, the best thing you can do is look used. For me, I'm really into the 3080 series right now. That's a awesome card. I picked this one up, I think, for about $330. There's a couple others around that $300 to $330 mark, which is an amazing deal for that card. You're kind of in that 50-70 performance, at least when it comes to raw performance. You're not going to get some of the multi-frame generation performance on the newer cards, but raw performance, it's a killer card, and you can get a really good deal on these for like 300 bucks, like I said, and get some great performance without breaking the bank and not having to pay somebody a scalper price, whatever the case is. If you are going to buy one though, make sure you buy from a reputable seller. Go to a place like Jawa, or if you're going to buy on eBay, just make sure you get some kind of guaranteed buyer protection to go ahead and keep yourself safe and test the card right away to make sure it's good. So with that said, and this 3080 now wired up, it's time to go ahead and now fire up our PC, where we'll see that it cycles through the post process and fires up right into Windows, ready to game, or we'll see in games like Fortnite, we're sitting in the high 180 to 200 FPS range, which, let me tell you, is way more than just playable. It shows the headroom that we have with this $1,000 gaming PC. Yes, I said $1,000. That was the price point I was trying to hit, and we came in at just $1,030, and I think we probably could have even gotten under. Maybe we were able to get a little bit of a better deal on our GPU. But you had to get scrappy to get a deal like this, and I think that's what I'm going to recommend everybody to do. If you want to build a system around $1,000 and get this level of performance, well, you're going to have to go find one of those old office PCs. There are thousands of them out there though right now. You're going to be able to find them. Just reach out to small businesses, see if people are trying to get rid of their 6th or 7th generation system that won't run Windows 11, that has DDR4, and you might be able to just find 16 gigabytes like we did to go ahead and get your system up and running on some decent RAM that's going to be able to give you what you need, at least for the meantime. But getting scrappy isn't enough. You also have to make some smart decisions when building a system on a budget, like getting a solid budget case. You can buy really cheap cases out there, other $50 cases, but they're not as nice as the FSP S340. This is one of my favorite budget cases I've seen in a really long time. Between the 3 included fans, the 270-degree viewing angle when it comes to the front and side glass panels, support for additional fans along the bottom, 320 millimeters, and a 360 millimeter radiator up top. This case is hard to beat, especially with the ease of use I found with building in it. It's very open, easy to access, and cable management support is far better than anything at this price point. So I'm very impressed by FSP with this particular case, and I do think it's a great recommendation if you're gonna go ahead and try to build a budget system these days. Also because it forces you into micro ATX, which I think is the route to go. See, micro ATX has always been the stepbrother or stepsister to the ATX form factor, or even the ITX form factor. But both of those, you're gonna pay a considerable margin more to go to. For instance, an ATX board to a micro ATX board, like I mentioned earlier, it's like 20 to 30% more. So going down, you're gonna save yourself up to 30% just on the board itself. Then, because we went DDR4, we're able to save another 20% by going with an AM4 motherboard compared to our AM5 counterparts. So between the CPU and motherboard and RAM, we were basically all in for maybe $300, $330, which is pretty sweet to see, especially when, considering that RAM for 16 gigabytes of DDR5 would have probably cost the same amount these days. So that's really the route I would go. And although I know you're going to be limited going with an AM4 CPU compared to AM5 with the lack of upgradability, don't worry about it. Honestly, today it makes sense. If you can get your RAM for free or at very low cost, that's the route to go. Because if you can save that money there, just save that money, put it away, and then down the road when you do want to upgrade when RAM comes down, go ahead and upgrade the system then. This system is more than playable for a CPU motherboard setup. And this motherboard is actually really solid for the first time on a micro ATX board. We're seeing things like debug LEDs, multiple fan headers, ARGB support, and pretty much everything that you need. So definitely a really solid setup there. And then, like I said, the place that I think you could save a lot of money as well, but you got to be careful with, is picking out a used GPU. Going with a 3080 is probably the smartest decision I think I found with this build, because at $300 to $330 that we're seeing right now online, these cards are solid. They're going to get you good performance, probably somewhere between that 5060 and 5080 level performance in most games. And at the same time, be about half the cost if you can even find one of those. So definitely worth something to consider picking up. But the one component I would never cheap out on when it comes to building a gaming PC, even a budget build, is getting a good solid power supply, because it's always worth it. Trust me, I'll get to that in just a second. See, by going with the FSP Vita GM 850 watt unit, not only do we have a little extra headroom than we would have had if we were going with maybe a 600 or 750 watt power supply, that probably would have been fine, but we also now have headroom to go ahead and upgrade down the road without having to change our power supply. And because power supplies often will outlive most of your other components, because they're rated like this one for a 10-year warranty, which means it's gonna last at least that long, I'm not gonna have to worry about this particular power supply for any of those next couple upgrades down the road. So I can keep that in my system, spend a little extra now, not have to worry about it, have a good warranty, and have a good lifespan with it while protecting the other components that are all connected to it, which, if you've seen any of my repair videos, can take everything down with a wrong cheap power supply. So with that said, I'm incredibly grateful to FSP for sponsoring today's video to make it possible for me to showcase to you guys that it's still possible to build a budget machine in 2026. That still is awesome. You just got to get a little more creative these days, buy some last gen hardware, and most importantly, get a little scrappy. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like, subscribe for more content like this, show some love to FSP in the comments, and check them out at the top link in the description down below. If you guys have any questions, always leave them down below, and we'll see you guys in the next one.